Yeah, FBI Director Wray today testifying on a number of issues, including January 6th, why it's taking forever to find the pipe bombers, why the FBI was involved in surveilling parents and treating them as domestic terrorists, whether or not the FBI is covering up for Hunter Biden. The list goes on and on and on. There really are, unfortunately, too many scandals within the FBI to hit every one as robustly as we'd like to. But I'd like to concentrate for a moment on what my next guest thinks is interesting in all of this. George Hill is with us. He's a retired supervisory intelligence analyst and an FBI whistleblower who joins us on the phone. George, good to have you with us on the show. Thank you.
Hey, great. How are you? Good to be back.
I'm doing good. Is there anything that jumps out to you today with FBI Director Wray's testimony?
A couple things right off the top of my head. Number one, he's finally admitted in public setting that the Bank of America list is real, and that was in response to Jordan and Massey's letter that they sent on May 25th to Bank of America, asking for, to shorten the letter, more information regarding the genesis behind the data mining effort that Bank of America did. And they responded in the affirmative that, yes, we did do it. And then Wray, unbelievably, was trying to play dumb during testimony. And I forget who the congressman was. He said, well, we have the email right here from your own FBI agent requesting the list. So that was another question that I had.
Let me make sure, George, if I can, because I want the audience to fully understand what you're talking about. There's a sequence of events where Bank of America was providing gun purchase records to the FBI, and the concept was that the Bank of America just did that. Basically, Christopher Wray was trying to represent it today. That Bank of America did that of their own volition, and the retort was actually no. This was at the request of FBI officials, FBI agents. That these purchase records were sent over to the FBI. And then Wray would say, well, then we decided to send some of it back because we didn't want to go overboard. And Jim Jordan said, well, okay, so you're admitting to an abuse. He's like, well, no, it's not really an abuse. It's just sometimes you think that maybe things go too far.
Yeah, unbelievable, right? I mean, this is
crazy.
Kind of like the dog ate my homework. For a man at that level, the director of the FBI, to have such a mealy-mouthed answer to what is a fact-based question with the evidence right there in front of him, coming off the dais from the congressman, is outrageous. But just to clear something up, the Bank of America, when they pulled that purchase data, they went then and layered on top of that anyone in that original poll that had ever purchased a firearm. So it wasn't just a data poll of people who used a BOA product to buy firearms. It was, did you use a BOA product in the Delaware, Maryland, Virginia area in between 5 and 7 January? And then once you're on that list, let's look at it again. And if you have ever bought a firearm, you go to the top of that list. So, Second Amendment voters are primarily single-issue voters. This is not a good group to run afoul of, and why there isn't a class action lawsuit by BOA customers, I have no idea why.
This is amazing to me too. I know we've talked about a lot of this, and as we learn about these things from some public reporting, but it was remarkable to hear Christopher Wray today just basically very casually admit over and over that there's a pretty extensive relationship with the FBI and America's corporations to surveil Americans, and everyone seems okay with that.
Yeah, look, we, meaning citizens, have known that companies scrape off all of our data, just moving a mouse over something, and you wind up getting sucked up, into databases. And the FBI realized a few years ago that they could go and enter the free market for that and buy that information outside of any kind of legal process, say whether it's a preservation order or a subpoena or a warrant. They can just buy this data and then using computers, then data mine that to go forward in protecting Americans from any harm.
Let me I do have some audio of this exchange between, I want to make sure to play some of it here. This is the exchange between Jim Jordan and Christopher Wray today on this very important subject.
Mr. Wray, did the FBI ask financial institutions to turn over their customers? You yield the time to me. Did the FBI ask financial institutions to turn over their customers' debit and credit card purchase history in the Washington, D.C. area for January 5th and 6th, 2021?
I don't know the answer to that as I sit here right now.
Well, we do, because Bank of America gave us this email from the FBI to Bank of America.
Well, I am aware that Bank of America provided information to the FBI, but what communications occurred between the FBI and Bank of America about it?
Let's read it. To recap our morning call, we are prepared to action the following threshold. Customers transacting debit card, credit card, Washington, D.C. purchases between 1/5/21, 1/6/21. That's scary enough. But then the next bullet point's even more scary. Any historical, capital letters, all capitals, any historical purchase of a firearm. You guys asked financial institutions, at least Bank of America, we think more. Did you guys ask them?
Again, I don't have the full sequence of the back and forth. You've got one, looks like you've got one email that I haven't seen before here.
Is it really possible that he would be ignorant of this, George Hill?
No, he shouldn't be. I not testified. It was an interview, which I'm also, under penalty, for lying in that interview. I'm the one who brought this to his committee's attention, to Jordan's committee's attention. It was leaked to the Rolling Stone 2 days later. If he is ignorant of this, then he made a decision to remain ignorant of it. I'm sorry, but he has to at some point start to take responsibility for something. And that's one thing that we've seen today is he isn't willing to accept responsibility for anything other than an accolade. But yeah, it defies credibility.
Yeah, it strikes me that a lot of the testimony today from Christopher Wray sounded something like that, which is once they had him dead to rights, he suddenly was ignorant of the details.
Yeah. No, and then the other thing that struck me today, right between the eyes, was his admission that there were, CHSs and agents embedded in the Capitol. Now, I'm using a shorthand version of what he said, but again, I was the one who brought that to the attention of his committee, when I went down and testified in the wintertime. Yep. I think it was the end of February, and was on your show right afterwards. But this is amazing that he actually admitted it. So it always feels good that I'm not facing any felony charges, to be backed up by the facts.
Yeah, he indicated today that that it seems that there were confidential human sources, but he can't really talk about it right now because it's the subject of various court proceedings. But he did say that he is not certain of whether or not there were any undercover FBI agents in the crowd. Is that a weird answer, you think?
That's a lie. Okay, having organized multiple high security events in my time in Boston, one of which was the Boston Marathon, which I did for almost 10 years, organizing security around that event. The FBI will always put agents embedded within a crowd in civilian attire, and I'm not going to get into all the legalese here, but they will do what's called Terry stops. And if they have a reasonable suspicion to stop and ask someone, some questions, and they're limited to just 5 minutes, and you either have to let them go or you have to detain them, legally detain them under a reasonable suspicion. But there's no way the FBI would have had to violate its own protocol going back decades not to have undercovers inside that crowd on January 6th.
So this would have been standard operating procedure. So that's a separate question from the way that those FBI agents acted while they were in the crowd. But you're saying that it is totally normal for big, high-profile events, especially politically fraught ones, I guess, for FBI agents to be in the crowd?
Not just normal. It's SOP, standard operating procedure.
All right, here's
it
the
been malpractice if they didn't.
Here's the exchange. This is Andy Biggs and Christopher Wray today.
Things here, and please don't distract here because we're focusing on those who were there in an undercover capacity on January 6th. How many were there?
Again, I'm not sure that I can give you that number as I sit here. I'm not sure there were undercover agents on scene.
So do you think that's a lie, a flat lie from the FBI director?
Absolutely. I know. I'd look him right in the eye and tell him it's a lie.
Yeah. So
he would have had to have violated his own procedures
to not have somebody
going back decades.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It is amazing to hear it, though. It's so
and not for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You would want that, you know.
Yeah, what I don't want is FBI undercovers, inciting a riot or being involved in something like that. And I would assume that there are supposed to be protections against that, that FBI agents can't, blend into a crowd and then call on people to burn down the building.
Details are different, but it's no different than these terrorism cases that the FBI has been putting together since 9/11, where you have people that are barely capable of backing a car down a driveway, and the FBI, saunters up to them as UCs undercover and walks that fine line between entrapment and a conviction. So this happens all the time.
Yeah.
This is part of the culture.
There was a moment today, actually, where Democrat Congressman Glenn Ivey thanked Christopher Wray for the FBI's kidnapping attempt of Gretchen Whitmer, which goes right to the point you're making. Listen to this a remarkable moment.
And also, there's been a great deal of talk about the domestic terror threats. For me, the planned attempt to kidnap the governor of Michigan and apparently kill her was chilling to the extreme, and I appreciate the fact that you all were able to intervene on that.
Of course they were able to intervene. The FBI planned it. They had like two morons sitting in the room with them, drooling on themselves, and the FBI planned the whole thing out. And then when they quote catch the guys, now they get awards. It's amazing. You stopped the kidnapping of Gretchen Whitmer. The FBI planned the whole thing, George Hill.
Yeah, I one of those guys, I believe, I don't know the proper medical term, but he was borderline, a clinic idiot, not someone who ignores information, but someone who just doesn't have the intellectual capacity, the IQ to process day-to-day events. That was one of those guys.
He was dull.
And one of the agents involved in that, Jason Chambers, I worked with, who was running a little side hustle against FBI policy, who still is pulling down an FBI paycheck, and then the supervisory special agent in charge of it, who was into swinging and beat his wife almost to death, on her nightstand table next to her bed at home because she wouldn't, get into the mood of things where they were, he was trying to have a good time. And nobody ever mentions, the kinds of people that the FBI has, in leadership positions running these kind of, borderline entrapment cases. Everybody keeps on saying it's a few bad apples at the top. Well, a GS-14 supervisory special agent is not at the top.
Finally, we heard a bunch today, George Hill, from the FBI director, Chris Wray. He insisted that whatever problems may have existed in the past, they're resolved now. He's instituted all sorts of reforms. The FBI has never been better, and you shouldn't question the integrity of the many thousands of FBI agents who work for the Bureau. What do you make of these kinds of promises coming out of Wray's mouth today?
Yeah, well, the facts don't bear that out, do they? You've had a couple 100,000 702 violations. If this training doesn't stop bad behavior, just like gun laws don't stop criminals from using guns. The FBI loves to point to Virtual Academy, which is the online training platform. Oh, we instituted this training, and we have mandatory, training in all the offices, and the SAC signed off on it, and oh, by the way, his field health measures are getting a good grade, so his end of the year bonus will be better. This is all nonsense. It's absolute nonsense, and we could go on all day. You don't have the time, but none of the facts bear out his testimony in that regard.
Yeah, no, there's some really bizarre moments today, and some of it takes reading between the lines, and I plan on doing more of that throughout the show today, because including the surveilling of parents nationwide, just unbelievable, the stuff that's happened under this FBI director and certainly over the past few years in that agency. Thank you very much. Go ahead, George.
Yeah. No, they forget the genesis behind that. That whole thing of surveilling parents was coordinated between the DOJ asking Randy Weingartner at the NEA to initiate a letter to the DOJ, and then the DOJ, so this all took place.
Yeah. It was the National School Board, the National School Board Association, and it was done in concert with the DOJ and the White House. They were all involved in this.
Right.
and it ends
and they forget to mention the genesis behind all this. They just jump right to the middle of the story and try to make it okay or whatever.
Yeah.
It's exasperating. Thank God I've got exercise equipment here at the house, because if not, I absolutely would have blown a heart valve.
Yeah, that's key. Exercise. It'll help keep you calm. All right. Thank you, George. Really appreciate your time today, sir. We'll have you back again soon. Thank you.